to get us there to that place, and I know you can do it. So we sing, we breathe, we pray, we learn. I encourage you to join us. If you don't know the words, you can hum or lie, because the more voices that are part of this community, the richer and the better we are for it. So, having said that, we will start with a melody on page 2 before Addie receives her talit. Let's sing Hine Ma Tov, just so everyone knows that everyone that's here belongs here and that it's good to be together.
Hine Ma Tov Na'im. 2 and 2 different ones, sorry. Hine Ma Tov Na'im, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Ma Tov Na'im, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Ma Tov, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Ma Tov, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Ma Tov Na'im, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Ma Tov Na'im, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Ma Tov, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Ma Tov, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad.
Now, Addie, I want to bring up your grandma and grandpa to the bima, where they're going to present you with this very, very special talit that you will wear as you lead us in this service.
Prayer too, or are you going to say it? Or
Addie's going to say it. Yes.
Oh, Addie says
Do you have anything you want to say? All right, Addie, the blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahitatef b'tzitzit.
Amen. Give your grandparents a hug there. And I want to make sure everyone knows, I believe this is the case. Addie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. That talit you're wearing belonged to your great-grandfather. Is that right? Yeah, so as we say, Lador Vador, from generation to generation, we are connected to those who came before us. We're even connected in some mystical way for those who will come after us. And so we now will kind of launch into the service. Now that you're wearing the fringes and taking on this role, we are all on page 3 with the Chetzi Kaddish.
Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah b'yom ha'divrah kirutei b'yom lich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayedecho beit Yisrael ba'gala u'v'zman kari v'meru amen Yehei rabbah mivorach Le'olam omei omaya, Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitroma, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitale, v'yitala, shemei kudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata, v'shirata, tushvechata v'nechemata, Damiram be'alma, v'meru, amen. I think it's great to be flawed. I'm hugely flawed and I like it this way. That's the fun of life. You fall, get up, make mistakes, learn from them, be human, and be you. Please rise as we call each other to prayer with the Baruch Hu.
Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed.
Well, I will always be a part of that darkness, although I'd say it's pretty equal to my light.
That's really what it says in the next prayer, Ma'ariv Aravim, right? Darkness and light, all part of a whole. So we'll sing just the refrain on the top there in English and a little bit of Hebrew because this service kind of predicts the coming of the evening. We're here anticipating evening, and so we sing in praise of the gifts of the nighttime.
Evening, the evenings, evening the frayed edges of our life's Ma'ariv, Aravim, Amen. Ma'ariv, Aravim, Amen. Ma'ariv, Aravim, Amen.
Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before, I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I love you more.
The Beatles always get that reaction.
When I was in Hebrew school, at our Wednesday lessons, we would have a short service. During this, we would always sing the Shema. That feeling of connection and oneness it always brought to the room was radiant. It meant so much to me that when I got home some days, I would ask to do the Shema before dinner. Please join me in chanting the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please be seated. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Together. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might.
Take to heart these words which I command you this day. Teach them diligently to your children. Speak of them when you are at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you arise. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Let them serve as symbols between your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Remember to do all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am your God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I am your God.
I know that we are a people who have crossed many seas. In every service, we remember that the price of freedom is often great as we sing the same words that our ancestors sang after crossing from slavery to freedom at the shores of another sea.
With words and thoughts and songs and foods of Passover still kind of stirring in our soul, we get brought back every Shabbat to that story. Not the slavery part as much as in the Passover Seders, but the freedom part. We get to the freedom part, reminding us that we can really help bring freedom to all who still need liberation, because we tasted freedom. We know what it's like, and we want to make sure that everybody sings songs of liberation.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא תהילות אוסף אלי, נורא תהילות אוסף אלי, מלכותך ראו בניך בוקי הים לפני משה, מלכותך ראו בניך בוקי הים לפני מרים. זה לי אנו ואמירו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, 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 אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גר ישראל. Sia Habakkuk nhân cuencos, Sia Habakkuk nhân cuencos, Sia Habakkuk nhân cuencos, Sia Habakkuk nhân cuencos, Sia Hamba, Sia Hamba, Sia Habakkuk nhân cuencos, Sia Hamba, Sia Hamba, Sia Habakkuk nhân cuencos. We are marching in the light of God. 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 We are marching, we are marching, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, we are marching, we are marching in the light of God. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש.
Page 13. So Addie, on those Wednesday services where we sing the Shema, we always closed with this melody, this prayer, which is reserved for the evening service. Late afternoon and evening service like this one, it's all about peace, right? And the kind of peace that we hope comes to everyone, people we know and people we'll never meet. We hope this night brings shalom to all, this night that you become bat mitzvah. So there's one blessing that I wanted to save until this prayer, which is the blessing for counting the Omer, because we would do that on Wednesday services as well when it was between Passover and Shavuot. And because we're getting towards the evening, it's time to say Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sefirat haomer. This is day 8. Your bat mitzvah is on day 8 when the night falls of the 49 days between Passover and Shavuot, between spring and summer. May this period of time bring us all peace. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Allow us to lie and rise in peace. Try that part. Allow us to lie and rise in peace. Shalom. Allow us to lie and rise in peace. Shalom. Hashtivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashtivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. This next part wasn't part of the prayer originally, but it's become part of the prayer for us. Everything's gonna be alright. 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 Everything's gotta be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Ufros aleinu Sukkot. Sukkot shlomecha, ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha. Cover over us tonight with a Sukkot shalom, a shelter of peace for you, for those you love. A Sukkot shalom, a shelter of peace over all creation, over everyone and everything that dwells on earth. May this night, this special evening, help bring peace, comfort, love, joy to all. Amen. Shalom.
When the whole world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful. Please rise.
We're on page 14.
Adonai, Sifetai Titach, Ufi Yagi, Tehilatecha, Adonai, Sifetai Titach, Ufi Yagi, Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you. La 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 la. Sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you, Adonai. Titach ufi yagid tehilatecha Adonai Sifatai titach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
We all carry inside us people who came before us.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Bekonei Hakol, Bezocher Chasdei Avot va'imahot, Umevi Geula livnei v'neihem, Lama'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham ve'Ezrat Sarah.
Together,
Praise be the God of our ancestors, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, of Sarah, of Rebekah, of Leah, and of Rachel. Praise be the source of strength and courage, the source of kindness and good deeds. Praise be the source of gentleness and love, of softness and kind words. Praise be the person who transcends strength through gentleness. Praise be the person who perfects gentleness through strength. Praise be the person who acts according to the best that is within. Praise be the person who reaches out to touch the best in others. Praise be the gentle faithfulness of Abraham and the valiant strength of Sarah. Praise be the God who infused humanity with divine potential.
Ata gibor le'olam, Adonai mechayei hakol ata
Rav Lahoshia, Mechalkel Chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'ofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umekayim emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al givurot, Umidom elach, Melech memi, Umechayei, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol.
I really think a champion is defined not by their wins, but by how they can recover when they fall.
Yeah. All about responding in holy ways and filling the spaces between us with Kedusha, with holiness. We're on pages 17 and 18.
נקדיש שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב היה נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מה אדיר, שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני, מן כמוהו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated.
And also on page 18, there's a passage from the book of Exodus, actually from the same book that your portion comes from, the portion that you were assigned to when you had a January bat mitzvah. So we rolled the Torah back to Exodus, and of course it makes sense, right? Now that we're at the end of Passover, we get one more sort of message from the book of Exodus, really timely, courtesy of Addie. But this passage talks about Shabbat, which is, again, this day that we define as a day of rest, a day of holiness, a day of really striving to be our best selves. So then we go back out of these doors and go back out into the world, we're a little bit transformed, more ready to make our world and the world a better place. And so we say that with our tradition that we keep Shabbat, we keep holy time, we make time out just for our souls, because when we do that, Shabbat keeps us on the path. And so sing together V'shamru.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת, ודורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורתם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורתם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, Shabbat vayina vash v'shamru b'nei Yisrael HaShabbat לעשות את השבת ודורותם בריתונם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתונם לדורותם בריתונם.
Page 20.
We ought to give thanks for all fortune, if it is good, because it is good, if bad, because it works into us patience, humility, and the contempt of this world and the hope of our eternal country. Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding.
You can say that over and over and over. And we hope and pray that someday, sometime, that there's an understanding of those words. So we come to this point right before the Torah service to sing a prayer for peace. In this evening service, we dare not only to pray for shalom, for peace, but for shalom rav, a great peace, as big as we can imagine, maybe even bigger. When you walk through the doors of the synagogue in what we call our oneg room, the circle room, you saw the exhibit that's called Faces Not Forgotten. If you didn't get a chance to look at it, maybe on your way out, you can take a look. Each of those portraits made with love are portraits of young people whose lives were cut short, killed by gun violence. And we remember them, we honor them and pay tribute to them, and we resolve to make a world with less violence so that children like that can live full lives. And it's hard to sing a prayer for peace without thinking of all the places in the world and in our neighborhoods that could use more peace. And of course, we're thinking of the people of Ukraine, victims of unspeakable violence and aggression. That's why we have to pray for a shalom rav, because there's a lot of places that need shalom, a lot of people. Shalom rav Yisrael tasim le'olam. Shalom rav Yisrael tasim le'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon v'cho ha'shalom. hu melech adon v'cho ha'shalom. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. V'tov ve'anecha livrech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Tasim le'olam. All over the world it says tasim le'olam. We ask that everyone take some time for some silent prayer or reflection or meditation. You can go back through the Siddur that Addie and her family lovingly put together for this community to come together for her bat mitzvah. Also on page 21 are some more some more passages. Many of them I see song lyrics. I think we have similar musical taste, judging by the songs that you chose. And I know all of them are filled with meaning to Addie, so I know they'll be meaningful to you as well. And then we'll sing another prayer for peace with Andrew and Leslie, and then there'll be time for the Torah service. So a little time for whatever those deep prayers and longings and hopes that you have to fill this space with.
Say shalom bimroma, say shalom aleinu, ve'yavo Israel, ve'yimru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, 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 shalom aleinu ve'al Yisrael.
And
Please rise.
so that we can begin the Torah service, we are on page 22, and we're going to ask your sister, Isla, to come up and open the doors of the ark, and then your 4 grandparents and your mom and dad to join us all here together on the bima. So come on up, grandparents and parents. Isla, open the ark. And you can sit right there by your family. Come on up, you guys. Grandparents. Yeah, here, you guys flip it. Let's go. Grandparents near me, and then Addie, you go a little bit down towards the challah. Yep. There we go. That's perfect. That's good. No, nothing's ruined. Trust me. Perfect. All right. So, Addie, take a look at this illustrious group of wonderful people who are here for you, are here because this is one of those moments in life that just feels just immense, right? And it's a privilege to stand next to you in the bima as you do everything we've asked you to do to become bat mitzvah, including receiving the Torah, which you're about to do. So we call this generation to generation. That this line goes even further that away, right? So many people that came before all of you to reach this moment, and all of them have given their Torah to you, Addie, your mother's people and your father's people. When I say Torah, I don't always mean the Torah that you're about to chant from, but the Torah we all have inside of us. We're filled with stories and experiences and lessons and values, and I know that this group of people has been giving you their Torah since you were, since you were born, and it's all part of you. And you also have a Torah, Addie, that's all of that plus that which makes you uniquely Addie, So on one hand, we're passing you all of that symbolically. On the other hand, we're actually passing you an actual scroll. This isn't the scroll you're going to chant from. It's another one of our Torah scrolls. But when we received this scroll, we promised that we would pass it on to our young people as they became bar, bat, b'nai, benot. We had someone this morning that wanted to be called a b'nai mitzvah, right? So, that wanted to do this mitzvah of learning enough to lead the congregation. So this Torah, though, we promised that we would always pass from generation to generation to our young people, because this Torah is a survivor of the Shoah. As you know, because you're almost in high school, so you've been here for lots of bar and bat mitzvahs as a 7th grader and even as an 8th grader in this crazy time we've lived through of delays and disruption. But we got here. But in even more unspeakably time of disruption, this Torah was in a small village in Czechoslovakia called Halasov, where all the Jews in that little village were taken away and killed by the hate and the murderous ideology of the Nazis. But the Torahs like this from all over Czechoslovakia were really saved by the Nazis in a very strange and twisted way, so that they could eventually make a museum. When there were no more Jewish people in Europe, they would make a museum of Jewish artifacts. But although we lost too many people, brothers and sisters, Jews and people that weren't Jewish, just targets of hate, that's not how the war ended. And we're proof of that, survival. And so this is a survivor Torah. And not just survive to only remember, we have to remember, but not just for that, but to move forward, to try to make the world better, to try to, to speak out when we see something happening that says we have to interrupt this hate because look what it can lead to. So that's a lot of responsibility, this Torah, and it is. But I also hope it's filled with joy. I hope that receiving Torah and continuing the traditions that are meaningful to you will bring so much meaning and so much inspiration to your life, just like this group of people have. So I'm going to put this Torah in Grandma's hands, passing it to grandfather and grandmother and grandfather, to your mom, your family. We're so glad and blessed to have you here as part of our community, to your dad. And then, Joel, you're going to put that Torah right in Addie's arms. Perfect. So now you come right front and center, where you've been all along, your family at your back. And we're going to have you again chant the words of the Shema like you did a few moments ago. This time, chanting them because we want this to be a moment filled with learning and listening, because Shema means to hear, to listen, to receive. And so before we dance with the Torah, we have to pledge that we're going to listen to the words of Torah and the words of Addie's Torah. So whenever you're ready, Shema Yisrael.
Shema
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad, echad Eloheinu, gadol Adonenu, kadosh shemo. And if you will, as Rabbi Susan always says, put your books down so your hands are free for clapping. These are moments of community, and Addie and her family and anyone that wants to join her, Addie's friends, feel free to kind of follow behind the procession. You can connect to the Torah, connect to Addie, but we want to make sure that we are all, in this together before we actually hear the words from Torah. So, in the words of the ancient Hebrew prophets, we say, hit it!
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la
Please be seated.
Perfect. So, as you can see, some of you saw before the service started, I rolled the Torah at Addie's spot. We were at another place in the Torah from this morning, but again, because we're going back to Exodus for this end of Passover service and Bat Mitzvah, rolled the Torah, and Addie was here and pointed out to her, which she already knew, that her portion immediately follows what are known as the Ten Commandments, very well-known, group of statements in the Torah, started in the Torah, and now are really sort of for everybody. So you can see the Ten Commandments right there, and right after that is Addie's portion. You could follow along with her on page 24 of your Sidurim, both the Hebrew, that of course the Torah is written in Hebrew, but also the English translation are in your books. I want to ask up here Rabbi Jim, who has been Addie's tutor and teacher, I think mostly on Zoom, right?
Yeah, all
so
on Zoom.
I mean, think about that, and we all get it with Zoom and Zoom meetings, but think about like really learning to do something as intricate and as challenging as reading from the Torah, from teacher to student, on screens. And so these are the times we live in, but you'll see, you can do it. It can be done. So. So Rabbi Jim's been your teacher, and we want to fill this moment and fill this mitzvah that you're doing for us to hear the Torah on Shabbat with blessings. So we saw your grandparents undress the Torah. That was Den and T, right? And now your other two grandparents are going to come up for the Aliyah, along with your Aunt Sarah. And is there an uncle as well?
Yes, Uncle.
What's your name?
Robert.
Uncle Robert. All right. So grandparents? Say, and cousin Emily. Awesome. Come on. So you guys coming up, Yamdu, grandparents and aunt and uncle and cousin. We're going to get Hebrew names as everyone comes up. You'll report to me with a Hebrew name if you have one. First? Zissel. Good name. Anne. Sivia. Sarah. Eliana, filled with light. And Robert. All kinds of names. So I'm going to ask this wonderful group of your family. I also want to mention, since Aunt Sarah's here, Aunt Sarah, show everyone the yad that you're using. This is the yad is the Hebrew word for hand, and it's also the name for sort of the tool we use to read from Torah to avoid touching it with our messy fingers. Not that your fingers are messy. I'm sure they're fine. But that really beautiful yad is a gift, right, from Aunt Sarah. So it's fitting that. What's that?
Brought back from Israel.
From Israel. So I can feel it, and very appropriate that you're here for the first Aliyah to see that yad right up close, connected to Addie's yad, her own hand. So whenever you guys are ready, the blessing before the Aliyah, before the Torah reading is on page 23. Baruch Adonai Hambarak Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Whenever you're ready, Addie.
ואלה המשפטים אשר תשים לפניהם, כי תקנה עבד עברי 6 שנים יעבוד, ובשביעית יצא לחופשי חינם. אם בגפו יבוא, בגפו יצא, אם בעל אישה הוא, ויצא אשתו עמו.
Beautiful. And then on page 24, the blessing following the reading. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan Torah emet, v'chayei olam atah b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Well done. You can give. Actually, you guys can stay here. Just make a little room because we're going to have. To the side, very well done. We're going to have your parents join you, Joel and Laura, Ya'amdu, Aliyah L'Torah, Shani, Yehuda, and Laura. Taking names, that's my job. All right. So you guys, the blessing before the second passage. Baruch at 1, 2, 3. Baruch at Adonai Hambarak. Baruch Adonai Hambarak Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
אם אדוניו ייתן לו אישה, וידו לו בנים או בנות, האישה וילדיה תהיה לאדונך, והוא יצא בגפו. ואם אמור יאמר העבד, אהבתי את אדוני, את אישי ואת בניי, לא תצא חופשי. והגישו אדוניו אל האלוהים, והגישו אל הדלת ואל המזוזה, רצה אדוניו את אוזנו במרצע, ועבדו לעולם.
Nicely done. And now the blessing on page 24. Baruch atah
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'toheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. So Addie, before you start chanting, you have your Aliyah. right? This is the third aliyah, which is yours to make the blessings. And though you have been doing a beautiful job leading us in the service and then chanting Torah, it is this aliyah that is the bat mitzvah moment, that makes you a daughter of this tradition, one who I know will take all that's meaningful from the tradition to you and bring it into your life as you spring forward into your life from here on out, as a teenager and then as a young adult, but also who will leave your own imprint on the tradition. I've heard your voice. I've heard your Devar Torah, which we're all going to hear. I know that I know the strength that you have, but also the tenderness that you have as well. I'll show it in a bit, but I've kept that U City calendar all these months because I'm a U City resident, and the drawing that you made that was put in that calendar is just astounding to me. I look at it all the time. So I know who you are and what you can be, and I'm so honored to be next to you as I call you to the Torah with your Hebrew name, which I know, you don't have to tell me. It's on the front of the book, and it's a beautiful name. It's Chaya, which means life. And you are filled with life, and I know that name has great meaning in your family, but it also has great meaning to all of us, because to be life-affirming is what we hope for. It's not always easy, but you pull it off. So I'm going to call you to the Torah using your Hebrew name, and you're going to finish chanting for us from Mishpatim, taking us back to that moment of building our society, hopefully out of peace and love. Ta'amod Chaya Bat Yehuda Velora Aliyah LeTorah Bat HaMitzvah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMavorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMavorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMavorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai
Notein HaTorah.
V'chi yimkor ish et bito le'ama lo tetzei kitzei ta'avadim im ra'a b'nei Adonai asher lo ya'ada v'hefta le'am nochri lo yimsho le'mochra b'vigdova v'im livno yi'adana k'mishpat habanot ya'asela.
And the blessing after.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tohenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Beautiful job, Kolavot. Turn around and get some nakas from your family. Well deserved. Beautiful. Well, Uncle Rob knows this place really well, right? All that music together that we made in this building, beautiful. I can still hear those kids singing, right? For sure. So, Addie, you've opened up our hearts by chanting Torah. Just by being you and standing in front of us, you've opened our hearts. And so we take advantage of this moment of holiness to insert a healing prayer, to think about all the people in our lives, for all the people in the world who are ill, who are suffering, who are vulnerable, who are oppressed. We just came through Passover. And to send our prayers and blessings and make commitments to do what we can for people who we know could use healing energy and healing words and healing actions. So on page 25 is the prayer we insert right in the midst of the Torah service, knowing that this is a time of opening. So I know that as a community, we're praying for many, many people who are ill. There's people streaming this Bat Mitzvah service who I'm sure are putting names into the chat for healing. We have a member named Bear Robinson who's recovering from a pretty major surgery. And I know some of you, for our Hebrew school students might know Bear. He was always at the church across the street because we had a Hebrew school both here and at the church. And he was just there to greet everyone and to make everyone feel welcome. And so we're sending healing prayers to Bear. And I remember Howie Ilovicki was here this morning. And in 1 week, both his mother and his father passed away, Howie. So I'm just sending healing prayers out to his family. And I know everyone is thinking about somebody. And all the people who are suffering from COVID, may they get well. And for all who could use a refuah shlema, a complete healing, let's sing together this healing prayer, page 25.
Mi sheberach avoteinu makor abracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu makor abracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Together we say the Chatimah, the part of this prayer we hope and pray seals it for those we love and all those who could use healing. We say, Baruch atah Adonai rofei hacholim. Blessed is the Holy One who teaches us ways to bring healing to those who are ill. And we say, Amen. So now, Addie, every Torah portion on Shabbat is paired with a Haftorah portion, a selection from the books of Nevi'im, the prophets, and chosen to pair with Mishpatim is words from the prophet Jeremiah. So you can again follow along with Addie, starting with the blessing before chanting Haftorah on page 26 and the Haftorah itself. And whenever you're ready, Addie.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divrehem hanem me'arim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nvi'ei ha'emet b'tzedek. Hadavar asher haya el Yirmiyahu me'et Adonai aharei kirot hamelech Tzidkiyahu berit et kol ha'am asher b'Yerushalayim likro lahem teror l'shelah ish et avdo Leish et shivhato ha'ivri va'ivriya chofshim levilti avod bam bichudi ahihu ish v'yishme'u kol ha'asarim v'kol ha'am asher ba'u v'brit l'shelah ish et avdo Leish et shivhato chofshim levilti avod bam od v'yishme'u v'yishalehu v'yashuvu achareihen v'yashivu et ha'avadim v'et ha'shefachot asher shilchu chofshim ויכבשו לעבדים ולשפחות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, סור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, להבוד ולתפארת. על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לה ומברכים אותה. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת. Mishpatim is the Torah portion from the book of Exodus that came after the Jewish slaves escaped Egypt. Mishpatim literally means rules. There are no stories, just rules. The Jewish people needed these rules to create their own society. Mishpatim teaches us how to live our lives. An example of one of these rules is, one who fatally strikes another person shall be put to death. Another example is the commandment to love strangers. When reading over Mishpatim, I not only see rules that are still relevant, but rules that discriminate against women in so many ways. For example, this excerpt reads, if a parent were to sell their daughter as a slave, she would not go free as other slaves do. And as we see, there is no mention of this rule for sons. Men are excluded from this terrible rule. Another rule I see in this portion displaying these issues states, if a man seduces a virgin for whom the bride price has not been paid and lies with her, he must make her his wife by payment of a bride price. If her father refuses to give her to him, he must still weigh out silver in accordance with the bride price for virgins. This rule is terrible in several ways. First, it implies that women are something to be given out or even bought for involuntary marriage. It implies that if a man seduces a virgin woman, he must marry her. She gets no say, and therefore this woman has no rights in terms of her own romantic life, which is not okay. This rule gives men an unjust power over women and implies women are something to be sold or bought. I really think this shows the nature of our ancient society. Mishpatim contains some of the oldest material in the Torah, and therefore much of it is outdated, especially the parts about gender. You might think that all of these discriminatory laws are in the past, but a lot of them are still present in our government, society, and laws today. Gender inequality has been an issue worldwide for centuries. Things such as income inequality based on gender, misogyny, microaggressions, stereotyping, unrealistic expectations for women, and the government being built around and for men. Reading even a single portion from the Torah, it becomes apparent that the Torah was written by and for men. Instead of using pronouns like they and them, or phrases like people, the Torah primarily uses words like man, mankind, and male, and pronouns like he and him. So much of the Torah excludes women, and often, when they are included, it's in a role like a wife or a daughter, not as their own person. For example, you see Abraham and his wife Sarah. Not Abraham and Sarah, or Abraham, husband of Sarah. Sarah is given the role or identity of wife of Abraham. Simply that. And the pattern continues throughout the Torah. In recent years, the protests for women's rights have increased dramatically, and over the past 100 or so years, women have won more and more rights. In Judaism, there are women rabbis now, and women are much more involved generally. While gender inequality is a lot better now, a lot still needs to be done. Women have to deal with unrealistic standards, generalization, misogyny, and so many other terrible things. Living day to day as a woman is hard. It feels like a constant fight at times, but if we keep working together and fighting for what we believe in, we can make a difference and change the rules. As we've discovered, there's much we have changed from ancient society, yet there's still so much more to improve upon, and we can look to portions like Mishpatim to see what we have done and what still needs to change.
So, Addie, you're tall. We've never actually met. person to person, though we've spent a lot of time together. Science fiction. The science fiction of this, that the whole thing was done on screens. Science fiction. When this little kid here is of age to do this, somebody will appear at your house with some ointment, and they'll rub it on her hand and say, here's some Torah for you. Or they'll stick a stamp on her forehead. Learn some Torah. In the future, science fiction, someone will ask Addie, you want to sit on a panel and return to the world of Mishpatim and change those rules you're talking about? And Addie will say, yeah, I'd like to be on that panel. And she'll be on that panel. And they'll put their hands into the past and they'll change those things. Science fiction. Science fiction. You know, in a previous era of Russian authoritarianism, there was a wonderful writer named Pushkin. And Pushkin wrote about how much you can tell about a person by what books they have, by their library, or what's on their wall. So most of what I know about you is in this rectangle. I see your face, and then I look behind your face and over your shoulder, and I see your wall. Now, what is on your wall is not for me to say. It's private. In our tradition, we have a serious distinction between what's public and what's private. What's on Addie's wall is private, but it says a lot about who she is. Like Pushkin said, like your books, like what you have in your private space speaks so much about who you are, your inspirations and your influences. And in the future science fiction, you will be able to return to the past in some way and change these inspirations and influences to be the ones that really feed you in loftier ways. Don't you think? Nice to meet you, Mom and Dad. Little girl, little sister, what's your name?
Isla.
Isla? How do you spell that?
Ayla.
Very nice. Addie and Isla, it's a pleasure to be your teacher. It's really nice to meet you. You have a future in basketball if that's what you're into. I don't know if that's what you're into or not. That's not what's on your wall. But what is on your wall remains private. And from here is your guidebook. For better or for worse, this is your book. You talked about the Jewish people. We are the Jewish people. It's a we concept. It's a first-person concept. For us, there's no the Jewish people. It's we are the Jewish people. And this is your book. It is your book. In your portion, by my count, there are 53 of those elements you called mitzvahs. Mitzvahs, 53 of them. Some are positive, some are negative. Some are to-dos and some are not to-dos. In the future, you will make some of those not to-dos to-dos. You will make some of those to-dos not to do. This is your responsibility, kid. And from now on, you are no kid. So bless you, Addie. Bless you from your book, from your Jewish people, from your friends, some of who are Jewish, some are not, from the strangers in this room, from the ancestors that your people carry with you in their beings, who whisper to them when they come up here and lay a talus on your shoulder. They are all standing with you. So bless you, my dear. In the future, it is yours.
So Addie, coming to us, not from the future, but from the present, is somebody who's going to give you presents. Rachel Thimangu, a member of our board of directors, has come here to bless you and to thank you from your synagogue, CRC.
Hi, Addie. It's great to meet you under these circumstances. Amazing job. Yashar Koach. And just as Rabbi Jim said, this is your book, this is your community. And on behalf of your community at Central Reformed Congregation, there's a couple of things that I'm going to present you with. So one is a certificate of your bat mitzvah. And also it says that in your honor, 2 trees have been planted in Israel and Palestine. One in a Jewish area, one in a Palestinian area. And the hope is that they'll grow together and that it'll usher in greater peace, as the rabbi said, and being Earth Day yesterday, I think it's just really appropriate in your case in particular. In the bag is a tzedakah box for charity. And I noticed as I was looking through your prayer book this morning that your family is making a contribution and you have raised some money for a great cause for LGBTQ youth and for your community, and just it's a great path to be on, and hopefully this will help you to continue it. So thank you very much.
We put these down, so remember to bring them with you. One more. You ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehachianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Blessed is the Holy One whose presence fills creation, who gave us our lives, and who kept us alive, and who brought us to Lazman Hazeh, this moment that you became bat mitzvah, and all of us were privileged to share this moment with you. We are all better for it, and the world is better for it. And we say, Amen. Amen. And Mazel Tov. So we're going to return the Torah to the Ark. We're going to bring up to open the Ark again, Isla. Come on up and open the Ark doors. And then to dress the Torah this time, we have Aunt Melissa and Uncle Dennis and your cousin Dylan. Come on. Oh, that's your Dylan. Who knew? Come on up, Dylan. You're 4 years old, right? 5? You got to be 5 through this service? Was that long? Go ahead and open the doors, Isla. Everyone should please rise. Don't mean to take your line, Addie. I'm sorry. We are on page 28. We put the Torah away to the words of the proverb that reminds us, as Addie reminded us, that Torah, our book, is a tree of life, always growing, always adapting, so that it can be part of who we are. Okay.
Yischaim hi lo machazikim ba b'tomecha meushar d'racheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha V'nashua Chadesh Chadesh Amenu Chadesh Amenu
Please stay standing, enjoy all the hugs, and we're going to turn to page 29. Addie and I are going to face the Ark and lead everyone in the Aleinu, which is the prayer that helps us remember the phrase Tikkun Olam, part of Addie's message, not only from her Devar Torah, but here's that amazing picture from I'm sure many of you have seen it, right? It was passed around as it should be. So, that's what we're here for, is to make the world a better place. And you do that, Addie, in little ways and artistic ways. And important ways. And just by doing the beautiful job that you did, leading the service and chanting Torah and Haftorah and giving us a message to take home, you've helped make the world a better place. So we're going to turn around and on page 29, Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, la'tei gedola leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kichol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, shehu notei shamayim v'yosed aretz, u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al, u'shchinat uzo, b'gov hei meromim, hu Eloheinu ein od, emet malkeinu efes zulato, kakatu b'torato, v'yadata hayom v'ashe vota el levavecha, ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim, b'shamayim mima'al, ve'al ha'aretz mitachat ein od, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, l'melech al kol ha'aretz, bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
Please be seated.
We turn our attention now at this point in the service to those people who we are remembering, those people whose shoulders we stand upon, who we've loved and lost. Even in the midst of a stopping time like Shabbat and Bat Mitzvah, we stop even more to honor our loved ones who came before us. And so I know Addie has some special remembrances from people that she and her family are remembering during this Kaddish at her Bat Mitzvah service.
Today I am remembering Dolores and Denver Clark, Lyda and Donald Kratz, Edna and Lewis Lander, Adeline and Simon Sonnenschein, Pearl and Harry Winter, Rose and Lou Teitelbaum, Elaine Vigelson, Devora Silverberg, Estelle Kochavi, Norman Nye, and Renee Dio.
May all of their memories be a blessing. I know Renee's brother is here with us and remembering his sister who was a part of your family's life and a part of our CRC family's life. I thought about Renee so much at the second Seder. We had a second Seder for the first time in 2 years, a week ago. And Renee so many times prepared that Seder with love and with dedication. We remembered her with that group as well. So thank you for all those, bringing all those people to this gathering. And I want to ask if anyone here has a name they'd like to add, whether it's someone who passed away recently, or if this is the yahrzeit, the anniversary of their loss. Please feel free to stand. I will call on you and you'll say their name. This is also, this morning was sort of Yizkor time, remembrance time. Certainly those holidays is a time we really feel our loved ones who are no longer with us. So is there anyone that would like to stand and say Kaddish for somebody? So in that case, let's all stand. Just to say that, to add to the list that Addie read, a few people who've died most recently connected to our synagogue community. Most recently, George Newman, the husband of Susan Newman. There'll be a service for George on Monday. Robert Wolfsey, who was Carol Wolfsey's father. And then, as I mentioned, Martin and Frances Ilovicki, Howie Ilovicki's father and mother, who passed away in Florida a week apart from one another. And so we are remembering them as well. And there's Renee's name right there on this list as well. So all the people that we're remembering, including people who I know are sending names into Autumn from the stream. On this sacred day, we remember each and every one of them in our tradition with the words of Kaddish on pages 30 and 31. Yitkadal v'yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chai echon v'yom echon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, V'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabba mivarach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlam rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'imroma hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen.
Oh, say shalom b'imromav, Uya say shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen, ve'imeru amen, ve'imeru amen.
Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories be an eternal blessing. And now, Addie, you can tell everyone that's standing that they should please. What do you think? They're standing. They should now.
Please be seated.
Yes. It's not an easy question. It's really not, actually. Before we kind of have closing blessings and depart, when we have a Saturday late afternoon / early evening service, we like to end with the Havdalah ceremony that officially ends Shabbat. Not yet quite time for Shabbat to be over by the course of nature, but because we want everyone to be able to go forth to your celebration, we're going to close out Shabbat in this time and place right here. It's also sort of the separation between from this moment, from Passover and the end of Passover, which for some was last night, but for everybody else is tonight. So a lot of separations, a lot of ways that we sort of remind ourselves that there are different kinds of moments, right? Havdalah says there are holy moments and there are regular moments, and we need them both, right? If all the moments were like this, like your bat mitzvah holy moments, we wouldn't know what holy was, right? So we need the regular moments where we're doing things we need to do, but we also, for sure, need Shabbat and bat mitzvah and holidays and relationships that are filled with mutuality and love and wholeness. And so that's what this Havdalah is all about. The Twisted Candle says it's all part of one whole. All the different kinds of moments are all part of what our lives should be all about. So I'm going to have Addie go down to the table with the Havdalah, the symbols, the ritual objects of Havdalah, the Twisted Candle. Remember, we started Shabbat with 2 candles. Through the course of a day of hope, of peace and holiness, the 2 kind of wound around each other to become one. There's also juice for sweetness and spices for spiciness, because we want Shabbat to be filled with, something different, something adventurous. So at this time, cousins Jordan and Emily are going to pass out the spice bags that were made with love by your dear friend Tali. Where's Tali? Tali put together these spice bags, and also in just less than a week, Tali and Jeff's son Isaac, I see him, Isaac right there, is going to have his bar mitzvah. By this time, Isaac, next week, you'll have done your bar mitzvah. So that's pretty cool. So everyone should have a spice bag. We're going to sing the blessings, first for the juice, then for the flame, then for the spices. When you hear the word bisamim, you can breathe in those spices to kind of hold Shabbat, hold this bat mitzvah inside your soul. And then for the fire, and then the blessing, putting it all together. So Isla, you'll come up too and help us with the holding up the Havdalah symbols. And I'm going to turn down the lights, and the blessings start on page 32 and go on into 33 and 34. It's all yours.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. Lai 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 lai. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei ma'orei ha'ish. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la la. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Adi, Bimera Yamenu, Yamo. Mashiach ben David, in Mashiach ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Magilati. Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov. Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov. A good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. Shavua Tov, 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 Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov, it means to have a good week. I hope that your week is informed and filled by all that's been happening. Passover and Earth Day and Addie's bat mitzvah. I hope that your week is made better by this time that we've spent together and by being lifted up and inspired by Addie. So we now have just a few more blessings left, but these are important ones. So Addie, your mom and dad are going to come up and give you their words of love and pride to you.
All right, Addie, well, a really tough act to follow, that's for sure. So at least I get to go before your mom, so I don't have to follow that. So I got that going for me. But wow, Addie, you've really you've been incredible today. Your tireless effort and determination really showed, and we couldn't be more proud of you. Bat mitzvah is an incredibly challenging thing under ordinary circumstances, and you were thrown, the ultimate curveball of having, how many other people have ever had a 2 times postponed worldwide pandemic bat mitzvah. So pretty impressive, but you never flinched, just like every other challenge you've ever faced. You fought through it with your typical grace and smile, and clearly 2 of the qualities that anyone who knows you always knows shines through in you. There's so many things about you that you've accomplished in your life so far that I'd love to stand up here and talk about, but I think people are going to start getting hungry and thirsty, so we don't want to keep everybody for too long. We could talk about food, because that's also one of our favorite things to talk about, but I'll move on and talk about some other things. So we've been really fortunate to watch you work through the commentary on your Torah portion from the pre-pandemic times when you started this journey. And your commentary about rules was a perfect topic for you because you've been a serious rule follower since day one. But it's never that simple. The message you delivered in your speech summed that up perfectly. You recognized from an early age that not all rules are fair and just, and you've selflessly committed yourself to figuring out how to live within those rules, but also how to challenge those that you don't think are fair or make the world a better place. And you have an incredibly strong vision about the changes that are needed to those ancient pre-pandemic rules to make our world a more fair, inclusive, and overall better place. As you well know, I don't always understand why certain people have been canceled, and we don't always agree on all the issues, but after discussing them with you and debating them with you, which you're always willing to do, I always walk away with a new and better understanding in perspective on whatever that issue may be. And I know that's the experience that almost anyone who knows you has had, and that's one of the characteristics that impresses me the most and will prepare you well in life. So if you really do care deeply about fair and just rules, obviously different from those rules that may have been the norm from when your Torah portion was written, or even the rules that were the normal rules maybe 2 years ago. It takes a new generation of leaders who are committed and care deeply about the issues they and others face to make lasting and meaningful changes to our ancient rules. And I truly believe that you and your friends, even though we sometimes criticize and complain about your phone usage and social media usage, will create lasting and meaningful change because of your collective passion and focus on changing the norms. It's a perfect example of your selfless attitude, sacrificing what may be best for you personally in the interest of the greater good. So Addie, we're incredibly proud of you today. You've accomplished so much already, and we can't wait to see what's next. We love you.
Addie, I stand here today in total awe of you. To say I am proud would be a huge understatement. The hard work you have put into your Hebrew and Judaic studies over the past 5 years have led you here. You have overcome so many obstacles, including a global pandemic, which, as your dad said, caused us to have to reschedule this monumental life event twice. Well, clearly the third time was a charm. Addie, you are a deep thinker, a naturally empathetic soul, a fiercely determined young lady, and incredibly independent. You have always been this way. This has been clear since you arrived at 1:10 p.m. on 1/10 of 2008. You started sleeping over at your grandparents' houses at 6 months. You looked at me on your first day of kindergarten and said, "You can go now, Mom, I got this." You will be gone at Camp Manitoba this summer for 7 weeks, and though I will miss you terribly, I will not worry about you because I know you got this. This independence does not, however, keep you from asking for help or asking for a hug when you need it. And I hope you know I will always be there to help and give hugs. You are one of the most grounded people I know and take care of yourself and everyone around you with such grace and ease. Your intelligence, both academic and emotional, are astonishing. You think outside of the box and have taught me so much about how to look at the world. Your commentary today was insightful and interesting, and I think everyone here learned something from you. I also know that our family that we have lost both recently and long ago, we're looking down on you today with so much pride, watching you carry on their legacies. Addie, I could go on, but I know you are ready to get to celebrating all that you have accomplished here at CRC, which has brought all of us here to this service, which you led for all these people who know and love you. Bravo, honey. I love you more.
Stay here, you guys. Beautiful. Isla, come join your family. All right, one more time. Addie, tell everyone they can please, you know what?
Rise.
Okay. Yeah, please rise. Just like the challah. Tali, did you make this? So Tali made the challah. You'll see it in a second. We weren't going to do motzi because you're going to eat somewhere else. But then it kind of felt like, boy, this truly is, for many people who've been keeping Passover and not eating bread, sort of the first bread, that we've seen in a bunch of days. So it was fitting to have motzi, and then you can go off and celebrate and enjoy. But for this moment that we sort of arrived at as a Jewish people, having really kind of identified and become our ancestors who were slaves, and then travel with them to freedom, we can again for another year eat bread. So this is for nourishment, and it's for all that we have to share with one another. There's plenty of this to go around. I think there's even another one, right, Tali? So everyone can enjoy once you get to your celebration. So we've already said Kiddush with Havdalah, so Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Since you've been up here doing all this work, you want to bite? You get the first bite, and maybe your sister can have one too. I don't know. Yeah? Perfect. And we'll send this off with you guys to enjoy, but we have one more blessing. We don't leave each other here in this community without putting our arms around each other, to your comfort level, of course. Our arms around Addie, our newest bat mitzvah. We're just blessed and fortunate and lucky that you are part of us, that we've all witnessed and been here to appreciate Addie being our service leader and becoming bat mitzvah. And so we leave each other with words of peace and love from the book, your book, our book, the Torah that Addie read from. There is this beautiful blessing that lets us leave each other and leave this place with words of peace and love in our hearts and from our mouths. It goes like this. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless and keep each and every single one of you, now and always. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. And may all the light that's around us from nature, the light that's within us. I could see your light, Addie, all the time with your smile and through your eyes. May that light help keep us feeling safe and warm and loved. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasim lecha shalom. And we wish for each other peace. Peace in our homes, shalom bayit, we say. Peace in our communities, and we've got your friends and family. We've got Brittany Woods. We've got Manitoba. There should be peace in all those communities and beyond. Peace in our country and peace all over the world. We wish each other blessings of shalom. So we say amen and Shavua Tov and Mazel Tov to Addie. Are there any instructions for everybody?
I think the only thing we heard is there's a lot of stuff going on in Forest Park today. So go Lindell, take Lindell and turn into the History Museum.